Good morning, Mr. Dunn.
Good morning.
It is such a pleasure and an honor to interview you today. I really appreciate your time and your effort to get ready for this interview. It is truly an honor for me as a Korean American who is here today, alive and free, because of your sacrifice during the Korean War. I can never thank you enough, Mr. Dunn, for what you have sacrificed. And our viewers in the audience today will hear just how much you have sacrificed for the Korean people. So before we start into your story, I'd like to share some pictures of you with the audience. So let's go ahead and do that now. And okay. So everyone, this is Mr. Marvin Dunn, who was a U.S. Marine Corps corporal with the 1st Marine Division during the Korean War. He was with the Able Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marine Regiment, and he was with heavy mortars with the infantry. And he fought in Korea in the summer of 1951 at Punch Bowl, Hill 749, and Hill 884. So I just want to give you an introduction of how he looked during the war.
Well,
okay. So now I am going to go back to our session here. Okay, Mr. Dunn, now I can see you clearly. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Dunn?
yes.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to start with a few questions about your family background and where you grew up. So can you tell me just a little bit about your family and where you grew up?
Okay, I was born May the 4th, 1931. I was born in Wichita Falls, Texas. That's in West Texas. And my family lived there 2 years. And my father was, he worked on the farm and sharecropper, and they moved to Paris, Texas. So I grew up in Paris, Texas, or south of Paris, Texas, on a farm. And until I was 14 years old, I worked on the farm with my dad, and they were very poor. He was born in 1908, so he didn't get to go to school very much. But when I reached 14, we moved to Paris. That was the year the war stopped. World War II had stopped, 1945. And from there, I went to high school and graduated in 1949. And my family couldn't send me to college. So I went to West Texas, Odessa Midland is oil company. And I worked in the oil field for a year and came back, and I started the college in August of 1950. And I know the war started in Korea, June 25th, 1950. But at first I thought they were talking police action. And I thought, well, it'll be over shortly. Police action. They were sending troops from Japan to Korea, but by December, I knew it was bad. And so I talked to 2 of my friends, and we joined the Marine Corps January the 19th, 1951.
So, Mr. Dunn, so you left college to join up with the Marines.
Yes, I was a freshman in college.
So why did you feel so compelled to leave your studies to join when you were not even drafted yet?
Well, the reason I joined the Marines is they were drafting. The draft was on in the United States, and they were drafting guys. And so I really didn't want to be drafted. I wanted to try to stay with my friends. And because if we went in the Army or Air Force or Navy, they may send us different parts of the country. So we joined the Marines. I suggested to my 2 friends, and they said, okay, let's go. And so we joined the Marines the 19th of January in 51. And they sent us to San Diego, California for boot camp.
Mhm. Now, before we go into the stories about your boot camp, you had told me earlier when we spoke that your uncle was also a Marine.
Uh, yes, I had several uncles in World War II, four actually, and one of them they put in the Marine Corps, and he was one of my favorite uncles, and he was on Iwo Jima, got wounded on Iwo Jima, but he also was on Guadalcanal. So, and when he came back, he brought some things, souvenirs from the war, and gave me, and we talked a lot about the Marine Corps, and so that was very impressive, and so I've always wanted to be a Marine. So
Mhm.
so
So you joined up with the first, was he also 1st Marine Division? Your uncle? Was your
Pardon?
was your uncle also 1st Marine Division?
My uncle was from Paris, Texas.
Right. Did he also serve with the 1st Marine Division, just like you joined up?
With the 5th Marines.
Oh, he was with the 5th Marines. I
I
see.
was in the first.
Okay.
Actually, we had the 1st Marine Division in Korea.
Yes. So you said you joined up with your friends for the Marines. Did you all end up in the same boot camp together? Your friends and you?
I still have one of my friends I joined with, and we've known each other 76 years.
Wow, that's quite a friendship. That's wonderful. That's
He
wonderful.
lives in Dallas, and I live in Arlington, Texas.
I see. Okay, so you got through boot camp, and can you tell me about how you got assigned as your duties as heavy mortar? Did you get that assignment in Korea, or did you get that assignment for heavy mortars after you finished boot camp?
We spent 12 weeks in boot camp.
Okay.
And they gave us 30-day leave to go home, and we came home, and then they signed us back to Camp Pendleton, Oceanside, California, and we went through advanced training there, and we finished that around the last of June, and we shipped out of San Diego to South Korea. We got there in July. I think it's around 10th or 12th of July.
Of 1951.
Of course, we left our sea bags in Kobe, Japan. That's where the Marine Corps always in that war. And we spent 2 days in Japan, and then on to Busan, Korea.
And how did you get to the front lines from Busan?
Well, in Busan, that we got off, and they put us in a place where they would assign us to our unit. It was a compound that, and Dunn comes pretty quick, D, and so they assigned me right away to the 1st Marine Division, 1st Regiment, 1st Battalion in Able Company. And so I left the next morning, and with some guys, and we were assigned to our unit, and it was probably 5 miles from 749 in the punch, but we didn't know where we were going. But that's
right.
eventually.
So did you get up? I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Dunn. The question is, did you get up to the front lines by truck or train? How did you get up there?
They took us as far as they could on, I call them cattle trucks. And then once we got as close as we could, they would let us out, and we walked. We got on 749 probably about 12 o'clock that night, and we were leaving the 7th Marine Division, I believe it was.
And when you say 749, you're talking about Hill 749, and a little later we'll talk about Hill 884. Now, from what I understand, the hill numbers correspond to the elevation of the hill. Is that correct, Mr. Dunn? The hill numbers is just how high the hills are?
Let me back up and tell you that
Yes.
I was trained on mortars. At
Yeah.
Camp
Okay.
But when I got to Korea, in the Marine Corps, you go in replacement.
Yes.
And a friend of mine named was Dory, and Dory comes before Dunn. And so he got the gunner on the mortar. And when my commander asked me what my MOS was, I told him mortars, and he said, we got all of our mortar positions filled. And he gave me a BAR, a Browning automatic rifle, which I was very disappointed at the beginning, but as we got into combat, I realized I was very fortunate because the BAR was probably one of the most competitive and rifles that we've had in that war, and I could fire 450 rounds a minute if I had to.
Wow.
And platoon of about 50 people, we'd have about 4 men with BAR and a light machine gun. So it turned out to be a very bad.
So even though you were trained with heavy mortars in Korea, you ended up as a rifleman. Is that correct, Mr. Dunn?
I was trained in 81 mortars, and
Right.
so
But you ended up as a rifleman.
I had time on the rifle range about 2 weeks, and we fired all the small guns, all the weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So I fired the BAR before, but we were at the time he assigned me this, we were in 4-day reserve, and my commander said, Dunn, take this weapon, take this BAR, and go out and fire it, clean it, until you can do it with your eyes closed. So I did that, and I got used to it.
I see. So it's good that you had a little bit of time to get used to the BAR before going on the front lines of fighting.
Oh yes, we walked up 7:49 that night. We got there about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we started climbing 7:49. We got there about 12 o'clock. We replaced the 7th Marine, and they had been up there really taking a lot of beating, and so my assistant who carried my ammo for me, he was in the, we were in the same foxhole. And so we were on 50% watch, and I told him I'd take the first watch, sleep 2 hours, and then watch 2 hours. So he went to sleep about 12 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, they sent up flares to let us see there was a ravine down in front of us. And when the flares went off, I could look down and see if I could see anything moving. And I couldn't see anything moving. This was about 1 o'clock. And as soon as the flare went off, they were so close to us, they were throwing hand grenades.
Oh, wow.
And so the rest of the night until daylight, we fought all night long, firing, throwing hand grenades, and just trying to stay alive and do as much damage as we could.
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning, they counted something like 90 people that we had killed, North Koreans. And but the hill 749 was just, they had bunkers and foxholes on the side of the hill, and we had to take it like that. The next morning, though, we were only about halfway up the hill, and when we replaced the 7th Marine, and when we started around the next morning, there were so many people dug in on the side of the hill on 749 that we couldn't stand up. We had to get on a prone position on our stomach and crawl up that hill and try to knock out the machine gun nests and people that are dug in foxholes. And we couldn't raise up because bullets were coming about 12 inches above my head. I could hear them buzzing right over my head. And so we would have to crawl like that all day. It took us almost all day to get to the top. And it was a very, I really thought I wouldn't make it, because it was so many people up there firing at us, and we were just, trying to stay as low as possible. But we finally got up there about 6 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And secured the hill.
So, Mr. Dunn, they had all the advantage. They were on top of the hill. You're trying to climb the hill, fight your way up, take out the guys in the bunkers or trenches, wherever they were. So this is quite a impossible situation for the Marines to fight uphill when the enemy had the advantage from higher ground.
Yeah, we had some great leadership.
Mm-hmm.
My company commander, not battalion, my company commander, he was in World War II.
I see.
Jerry Jackson, and he had been on Iwo Jima and some of the other islands in World War II, and he was an engineer from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and very mature, and he kept us all. Most of us were 18, 19-year-old kids, and he was in it 20 something or close to 30, I guess, and he was very, very good, and
right.
He kept us calm and everything before we got into the fighting.
Right. So he was a salty Marine, as you guys say, right? He's a salty Marine.
Absolutely. And
yes, he's a seasoned combat veteran. And how great that he really knew how to lead you in that awful battle, Hill 749. So that Hill 749 battle took place in early September 1951. Is that correct, Mr. Dunn? It was September 11, 12?
yeah.
1951, 749. So then about another 10 days later, you found yourself fighting again in combat on Hill 884. Can you tell me about what happened on Hill 884?
Yeah. When we finally secured 749, we were, I didn't know where we were going, but of course the company commander Jerry Jackson did, and we traveled probably over 2 or 3 other hills during that time, and we finally got to 884. Now before I got there, the Rock Army was there, and they had the helicopter them out, I think, and the 5th Marines replaced them. And so when we got to 884, we replaced the 5th Marines. I was in the 1st Regiment. I'm talking about the 5th Regiment. And we were up there probably 12 days and going on patrols and firefights. They would come up at night, and there was a ravine, a little valley between us and the North Koreans. And I wasn't sure whether they were North Koreans or Chinese, but they would come up at night, and it was very difficult to understand what they were doing, because it was so dark at night that you couldn't even see your hand in front of you. And but we had those flares that would still be going up and helping us.
So I cannot imagine how difficult it was for you to fight at night. You know, it must have been pitch dark in these mountain hills. Even with flares, did you have difficulty seeing what was going on around you? Or did the flares really help fight the enemy?
Well, the flares were very, very helpful, and we probably stayed up there 6 or 7 days on 884 and secured that hill pretty well. And we'd lost so many guys that we finally they sent the 1st regiment the 2nd Battalion. I was in the 1st Battalion. They sent the 2nd Battalion up to replace us. And my good friend that I joined with was in the 2nd Battalion.
Oh, so you saw him.
I did not know where he was in
Okay.
Korea. He was in, you know, somewhere, and he was the first man up on the hill.
Wow.
And so I was the first one that met him, and that was very unusual.
Wow.
And, you know, they replaced us. We went back in reserve for about 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And because we had to get some replacements. And then we eventually went up on Hill 812. And that's where I got wounded.
So this was now October 25th, 1951.
October 26,
1951. And what was happening here when you got seriously injured? Can you tell us what you were doing and what was happening on that hill?
Okay, my company commander asked me to take 10 men that had just joined our unit, take 10 men and go get some logs because we were going to set a defense up for the winter, build some bunkers and things. So I took them with me, and of course they were new. They joined us when we were back in reserve right before we went to Hill 812. On the way back, I had 3 logs in my hand. They were small trees, and I had 3 of them in my arms. And right before I got to where my bunker was, I heard a mortar coming in. It whistled. I knew. I've heard so many of them. I knew exactly what it was, and I yelled for the guys to hit the deck. They did, but I didn't. It landed on my left side. I'm not sure how close to me, but I knew it. I knew it got me because it blew me about 10 feet in the air, and then of course I couldn't see. Shrapnel got in my eyes, and I lost my foot right below my ankle, they said, and I had some other holes in my leg that they had to take care of later. But anyway, we hadn't been up that long, and we didn't even have a place where a helicopter could land. And so they called in a helicopter, and the guys leveled off a place where it could land. And so they put me on one of these little baskets on the side of the helicopter.
Just like MASH.
And yeah, they started one way, and I heard the pilot and co-pilot say, I could hear that North Koreans were firing on us, trying to hit the helicopter.
Oh, wow.
And I heard the pilot say, we're going to have to turn around and go another direction. They're firing on us. But anyway, they got me to a MASH unit, a tent where they had medical supplies and stuff. And they knocked me out immediately. They put me under, and I don't know how long it was. Maybe the next day I woke up, and I couldn't see. But I heard someone walking in the tent in the MASH unit, and I asked him, what did they have to do to me? And he told me my leg was gone, my foot was gone, and I couldn't see, and I had shrapnel in my face, and I'd lost. The action had damaged my left eardrum. I think 6 holes were in my left eardrum, and so from there, I think I stayed about 2 days at Tamashii, and then they flew me to Seoul, Korea, and I stayed there about 2 or 3 days, and then they flew me to Tokyo, Japan, and then in the ambulance they took me to Yokosuka, Japan, and there was a naval hospital there, and I spent 2 weeks in that hospital. And they were just trying to figure out what to do with me. And so finally they decided to fly me to Oakland, California, that naval station, and naval hospital in Oakland. And I went through 3 surgeries there. and they had to take off my leg up above my where a piece of metal had gone into my leg, my calf, really, my calf. And I've got about a 7-inch stump, I guess, 6 or 7-inch stump below my knee. And they had to do a skin drought, and they had to close it up. So I had 3 little surgeries, and it was probably, I got there the last of November of 1951. And I was in the hospital until April of 10. So I was in there approximately 7 months. I was in the hospital and going through rehab and things that I need to do to strengthen my stump, and it worked out real well. I was able to. We had a lady that was over the rehab. She was a nurse in World War II, and she lost her leg somehow, and she trained us or worked us out and made sure we couldn't get our prosthesis until we proved to her that we could walk up steps, we could dance with her, and we could do certain things until she wouldn't give us our prosthesis to take on liberty. And I know some of the guys are having to go down wait about 5 or 6 weeks to get their prosthesis. But I was laughing, telling them I was going to get mine in about 4 weeks. And sure enough, 3.5 weeks, I got my prosthesis and went on liberty the first time.
Wow.
California.
So Mr. Dunn, so because of the mortar hitting you, you lost your leg, you lost your left eardrum, your left eye, and you also had shrapnel in your right eye, but your right eye was saved.
Face and everything.
Yes, but they were able to save your right eye.
Shrapnel in it, but they're not going to try to get it out.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat what you just said, Mr. Dunn?
I have shrapnel in my right eye, the one I see out of.
Yes.
But they're not going to do anything to try to get it out because they don't want it. They're afraid it'll get infected if they try to get it out.
So you still have shrapnel in your right eye?
I really do, yeah.
Are you able to see out of your right eye?
God bless me because I've been able to. At first, it took me a while to get my vision back. Once I did, I got to see 20/30, and but you know, I was just lucky because my doctors tell me that I could have been blind both eyes.
Well, I had no idea that you still carry shrapnel in your eye. And I'm sure every day is a reminder of what you lost in Korea. What did you point out there, Mr. Dunn?
Right there, shrapnel.
That's where it's at.
And I've got it down around my mouth. It took me 7 days before I could really see anything. Right eye, and then it took about that many days before I could open lips. They would feed me something with a straw because I had shrapnel and stuff in my lips, and they were closed. I couldn't open them, and they would put straws, open it close enough to put a straw in there, and I could drink different things. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Dunn, it is hard to find words to console you and to thank you for what you have sacrificed with your own body, losing a limb, your eye, just your overall health because of Korean War. And there are no words adequate to ever thank you enough for what you have sacrificed for us. And I'm sorry for all that you had to endure and suffer your whole life because of the injuries you received. But I, as a person who is here because you fought for us and saved us, I'm eternally grateful to you, Mr. Dunn. I just cannot thank you enough. And I'm sorry for all that Korea caused harm to you. And I know there are so many veterans who came back without limbs. And so I just want to say this for all veterans out there who may have lost a limb or some part of their body during combat. I just know that I have no words enough to thank all of you for what you have sacrificed. And I just am so sorry. Now, I want to go back to what you said, is that you said you had a very tough nurse. She sounds like she was tougher than a drill sergeant. That nurse that helped you rehabilitate to walk. You said that you were able to walk within 3 weeks, faster than the other guys. So then you started to walk on prosthesis after that? Oh, okay, let me repeat. Mr. Dunn, can you hear me now?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so it sounds like the nurse you had in rehabilitation was tougher than your drill sergeant in boot camp.
I feel it.
Oh, you can't hear me? Okay. I wonder what we could do about the sound here. Should I keep talking? Can you hear me?
Okay, it didn't take me long to kind of walk.
Yes.
I guess I was fortunate because some of the guys it took longer, but I was a pretty good athlete in high school and I played ball and basketball, and so I was able to adjust and start walking within a couple of weeks. 3.5 weeks I was on liberty with it, but it was a challenge. But you know, you just try and do your best and follow instructions from the nurse and everything, and it went great for me. I just you know, I was so lucky.
Now, that's the physical rehabilitation, but emotionally, how did you cope with the loss of your leg and your left eye? How did you get over the loss and continue on?
Well, you know, let me say this. When I got wounded, I've been a Christian since I was 14. And when I got wounded, I asked God to let me live and be productive. And I didn't want to live if I was going to be in a wheelchair or, you know, someone had to take care of me. But anyway, so I think God was with me the whole time I was learning how to walk. But we had problems. Like, for instance, our stump was not used to that wood. Back then, your prostheses were made out of wood. Now they have cushions and things that go on there. But we would have I'd have balls on them, and I'd have to stay off of it for a while. And it was pretty difficult. But once I got my stump used to walking and used to that prosthesis, it worked out okay. But I even in college, I had trouble. Had to go to school some days with crutches, and but I had some great teachers in college. They understood, and they were there for me and helped me any way they could.
God was absolutely watching over you, Mr. Dunn. That you could have easily been killed, and yet you lived and survived. So it is clear that God's hand was over you, protecting you, that you could survive that horrible mortar round coming in and hitting very close to you.
Let me say one other thing about that too. When I prayed to God, I told him, I said, if you let me live, I promise you I'll make you proud of me someday.
Mm.
And when I started back to college, at first I thought I was going to be a pharmacist because my 2 years in high school, I worked pharmacist. I get pills for him and he'd count out and everything. So I'm pretty familiar with all that. But when I got to college, I decided the best way to make God proud of me is to work with young people. So that's the reason I went into education, because I love working with young people. They were, it was just fantastic. I enjoyed it so much.
Well, I absolutely want to ask you a little bit more about that, but there's one other thing I want to ask you about is you had a very unexpected visitor while you were at the hospital. Your company commander, Jerry Jackson.
Jerry,
Can you tell me about his visit with you and what he said to you during his visit?
Well, he emphasized to me that there are many ways I could go in life, but he said, Marvin, you can do one of two things, really. You can get you a box and sell pencils on the street for a nickel a piece, or you can go to college and really have a great life. And I told him, I said, I had planned to go to college, Captain, anyway, because I was in college when the war started. So I'm going to college. And but he talked about that. He was an engineer and he was into education, and he was happy and that I'd already decided what I was going to do, and I think I might have told you he sent me Christmas cards for the next 10 years. Sent them to my
What a great man.
address because I wasn't married then. But he's from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and he was some kind of engineer and a great guy.
Right. So he's the Marine that you said had fought at Iwo Jima, Guadalcanal. He was the salty Marine that led your company. And here he is, having found you at the hospital, knowing that you were trying to recover from your injuries from Korea. What an incredible man he must have been as well. So let's go into how you got into teaching and education. So you said that you decided to work with young people, that you wanted to make God proud of you, of your life that he had saved. Can you tell me about your career in teaching and education? Can you tell me about your career in teaching and education? I know you had several different positions.
Of course, first, they assigned me to a middle school. 7th and 8th grade, I was teaching English and social studies. But I had gotten my master's at the same time when I got my bachelor's. I got them together and before I left college because I wanted to get into administration. And but I taught 7 years before I got into administration, and I love the teaching part. But then I was a principal 1 year, and then they asked me to come downtown to be director of a program. And I was able to hire 10 curriculum specialists, and we developed a program called multicultural education. It's a studied program. It for all kids, black, brown, Asian, Indian, all of them could identify with the material. I was able to hire 2 Asian, 2 American Indians, 2 Latinos, 2 blacks, 2 Anglos, and they were all specialists. And so within a year we had a program in design testing in the 7 schools, and at the end of 2 years we had it in 137 elementary schools, K through 6. And I did that until I retired.
Right. So you were in education for over 30 years, Mr. Dunn, is that correct? 34. 34 years of your life you devoted to younger and our youth. Now, I'm going to ask you, you had been studying pharmaceutical or pharmacy. You were going to become a pharmacist, and then you changed to education. Why the change to children? Why did you make that change? I know you said that that gave you a lot of joy, but what made you make such a drastic change from science to children?
What made me want to work with children?
Yes.
Oh, well, number one, my psychology teacher in my freshman year in college, he one day he said after class, he said, "Marvin, I would like to talk to you after class." And I said, "Okay." And I thought maybe I might be in trouble, but he said, I know you want to be a pharmacist, but he said, education is wide open. And he said, they're crying for men in schools because back then in 1956, most schools had just women, very few men. Mm. And he told me, he said, you can probably select the school you want to go to. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, that would be a good way to go and make God proud of me, because I told him that I'd make him proud of me someday, and I had done so well as far as rehab and everything, I got to where I could walk 18 holes and play golf.
Wow, that's impressive, Mr. Dunn.
You know, I didn't let anything like that.
So you didn't let anything stop you. Now, did your students and the children that you taught, did they know that you had lost a leg and your left eye? Did they know that you had overcome these things? Did they have any idea what you had been through?
You know, I think I might have told you, I know they knew that I'd been in a war. Mm-hmm. And I know they knew that. Mm-hmm. They never said one thing to me about it. Mm-hmm. They never questioned. And I think I might have told you that probably 20 years ago, I went to Tom Thumb's to buy some groceries, and this lady was gray-headed, and I don't know, she's probably 50 years old, and I wrote a check for the groceries, and she looked at the name on it, Marvin Dunn, and she said, "Well, I had a teacher by the name of Dunn." And I said, "Really? Where did you go to school?" And she told me, but she said, "It's not you because he had a prosthesis. He had a wooden leg," she said. And I said, "Well, I am that person. I taught you in 7th grade." But they knew that I did have a prosthesis, but they just never mentioned it to me.
Right. Well, it was probably evident to them, as you said, and you probably didn't have to say a word, and they knew that you were a great example and a role model for them because you had lost so much, but you overcame so much more. So I'm sure you must have been such an inspiration to your students and the children that you taught. What an incredible life teacher you must have been outside the classroom also.
Yeah.
Mr.
I've always been so active.
Yes.
So I think that had something to do with it.
Wow, you are truly an inspiration, Mr. Dunn. Like I said, just seeing you as an example, how could that not inspire your students? I'm sure they were so grateful to have you as their teacher. Now, what I want to go to next is how you got involved with the Korean War Veterans Association. You're wearing your patch there on your shirt. your KWVA. You belong to the chapter 215 in Texas, General Walton Walker chapter. How did you get interested in joining Korean War Veterans Association?
Let me say this. I didn't know they had a Korean War Veterans Association when I was in Dallas,
Okay.
working school district.
Mhm.
But I moved to Arlen in 1999, and 22 years ago. And my daughter saw in the paper where they were going to start a Korean War Veterans chapter in Arlington.
Mhm.
And that's where I live. And she said, "Dad, you've got to go and see what it's all about." So I went, and I heard Larry Kynard and I heard Bill McSwain talk, and I thought, this chapter's going to go. So I joined right then. So I've been involved for 21 years. I've been involved in KWVA, and I was the second president of our chapter. And then we had a state department where we would meet, the whole state would meet at certain cities once a year. And I was president of the State Department for 3 years.
Wow. So how many chapters did you have in the state of Texas of our Korean War veterans?
We had 12 chapters.
Wow, that's a lot. 12 chapters.
We'd come together
Huh.
one year and we'd talk about all the things we're doing to help Korean War veterans.
Yes.
And just be positive. And we had about 75 members in chapter 215.
Wow, that's great.
Most of them would come. Once a month we had a meeting.
Uh-huh.
Ladies would cook, so it'd be like a picnic really, because they'd bring food. But anyway, and after I was president of the State Department, I was encouraged to run for national director. Larry Kynard was second vice president at the time.
Yes.
So I ran, and I was elected 2 terms, 6 years for national director, and I really enjoyed that working.
Also, you were on the board of directors for the National Korean War Veterans Association. I didn't know that. Wow. So you really have lived a life, Mr. Dunn, of serving others, serving the youth, teaching them, and then serving your fellow veterans. Do you have any highlights from, what is the greatest highlight you remember of your time with the Korean War veterans? Is there something that happened that you really just look back on and say, wow, that was really neat?
Terrible. One that stands out.
Uh-huh.
When I came back from Korea, April 1952, I was watching a baseball. I bought a little television, and I was watching a baseball game, the Yankees in Cleveland. And they had a third baseman by the name of Dr. Brown. And he'd gotten his medical license. He was a heart specialist, but he played third base for the Yankees. And I thought, why is he playing third base for the Yankees? He's a doctor. But I didn't know. He was from Fort Worth. And so when I was president of the chapter, I read in the paper where he was in Fort Worth, and that somehow I got his phone number. I think it was in the paper. I'm not sure. Anyway, I called him and I said, Dr. Brown, I told him what I'd done in 52. I saw him, and I said, we have a great chapter, and I'd love for you to be a member of it. And he said, well, if you'll meet me out in front of the building, I'll come. So he and his wife came to the meeting, and they joined. And it was a great experience, because my wife and I sat with him and his wife until she got Alzheimer's, and she finally died. But he just died this past year, and he was active in World War II.
Oh, wow.
Good experience, but I love trying to recruit. I recruited lawyers, doctors, and people that were in Korea, and they enjoyed getting together once a month, and having a meeting, and it was fun. I'm still a local. I'm still part of the chapter. I'm just a director in
So, for veterans out there, Korean War veterans who may not belong to a chapter, what would you say to a Korean War veteran watching this that have never joined a group of Korean War veterans? Why is it important, do you think, for veterans to gather in a group such as the KWVA?
Well, we had the first president was good at getting people together and assigning people different situations. He wanted me to be part of the communication part, and what I would do is contact people and try to get them to join the chapter, and so I got involved right away because on the application it said if you'd like to participate in the chapter administration, check this, and I checked it, and of course they called me and I got involved. But it's been a great honor to be a part of the Korean War Veterans Association and get to meet all of the Korean people in Dallas. We have a lot of Korean people in Dallas, Fort Worth. They take us out to eat sometimes. They will buy food and have it delivered to our place at different times. It's a very humbling situation, and they're very patriotic, and they want to do everything like you, I guess.
Well, yes, well, Mr. Dunn, I always say that we Koreans can never do enough to honor and thank our Korean War veterans. We owe you our lives and our freedoms. We wouldn't be here. The fact that I could even have this interview with you today is because of God's grace and because of your courage. That's the only reason I'm sitting in front of you today. And I'm so grateful for you and all of our veterans. And of course, the over 36,000 men who gave their lives, who could not be here. What do you believe, Mr. Dunn, is the legacy of our Korean War veterans? What is the legacy of our Korean War veterans?
Well, I think it's got to be that we went and helped a country that was attacked by the communists to develop a five economic situation in the world. South Korea is probably the fourth or fifth economic power and GDP people in the world. They've developed a fantastic company and organization, and the Korean War veterans in the United States helped them because they were overrun by the North Koreans and the Chinese, and so I think their legacy is that we just helped a country, and I think NATO had a big part to play in that. Not only, but the United States, they had the most people there.
Right. Yes,
but
there were.
Canada sent 5,000 people, and France and England and different ones.
Right.
So,
So yes, there were 20.
and it's fantastic.
Yes. Well, I'm completely humbled when I think about how insignificant South Korea was, and also how significantly the world responded to it being attacked by communists. There were 16 fighting United Nations countries, 5 medical United Nations countries. The fact that this was a worldwide response to a small, insignificant country being attacked is really incredible to me. Why should anyone have come to fight for us and give their lives for us? So I noticed, by the grace of God, and because of freedom-loving country like America, that you all came to give us that and defend our freedoms. And we can never pay that back. I know it is an incredible and immeasurable sacrifice that was made for us. So I am so grateful to you,
Well,
and all the veterans around the world that came.
I tell you, it's awesome what the Korean people have done. The South Korean people have done that country. When I was over there in '51, you can't believe what it looked like. And of course, they had, and South Korean people been tortured for so many years by Japan, 40-something years. And it's just amazing what they've done. They must have a great university system where they've trained engineers, lawyers, scientists, entrepreneurs, journalists, people, all kinds of people to make that country what it is today. And I think the Korean War people of the United States has played a small part in just helping them to get where they are today.
Well, I would change that small to a big part. Mr. Dunn, you had a big part in saving us. And I know even after post-war reconstruction of Korea, that America sent a lot of financial aid to help the country rebuild. And you are right. The South Korean people have they place a great importance on education. And so I think that is part of the reason why the country has been able to advance and rise from the ashes of war so quickly. But it is all really because of America. I always say, if not for America, South Korea would not exist today. I absolutely know that is true. Now, as we wrap up our interview, I want to also think about veterans that are serving today. The active duty men and women serving in Iraq and Afghanistan, they're coming back home, much like you did, with having lost their limbs in battle with IEDs and all kinds of traumatic brain injuries. You've gone through something very traumatic yourself 70 years ago. I was just wondering, what advice or message do you have for any active duty coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, having lost their limbs, just like you did in Korea?
First, I would try to get them to understand why they went to Afghanistan. Like when I went to Korea, I had read material and I didn't know where Korea was, but I read everything I could about them, and I knew why I was going to help South Korea become a democracy. I think in Afghanistan, they need to know, and I would try to get them to verbalize it to me. Why do you think you went to Afghanistan, and what good have you done there? And first of all, I would tell them, they'd probably say something like, well, in Afghanistan, there's a Muslim sect there in Afghanistan that's terrible. They're terrorists. They rape women. They rape little girls. And so what they did was great to help these women. Not all Muslims are like that. This is a particular sect. This is ISIS, and they're terrible. And I've read all kinds of horror stories about what they've done. But I would tell the guys and the women that come back, look, sure, life presents many challenges in life. And what you need to do is just set a goal, make sure that you know what you want to do, and my mother always said, you know, it's not the way you go down, it's the way you get up that makes sense. So I would try to encourage them to get up and explain what happened to me and how I did, and I think that would. But basically, I would try to get them to internalize themselves why they went there and what good they did.
Yes.
That country.
Well, Mr. Dunn, you did more than good. You did great in Korea. You saved us. We are the forgotten victory. I know Mr. Kynard always says, Korea is the forgotten victory. And we are victorious because look at the millions of Koreans like me, free and alive, away and free from the grips of the crazy, evil communist regime of North Korea. I thank God every morning I wake up and know that I am in a free country, in this great country called America. And
well, hey, South Korea is an example for the world that what a democracy can do.
Yes.
It's obvious. It's a great little country, and I just hope they continue, and somehow they can NATO can control North Korea, so they won't get crazy and send off some of those missiles.
Yes.
But I've met so many Koreans when I was national director.
Mhm.
We'd have meetings in Washington, Virginia, and there'd always be some Koreans that would come to our meetings, and it's amazing how courteous and how warm and how appreciative they are because of what we did there, and that's what it's all about, you know.
Yes. Well, I hope you are proud of your service. I hope you are proud of what South Korea has become. And I thank you with all my heart, Mr. Dunn. You have been a servant all your life. You have served others, whether it was students, your fellow Marines, and your fellow Korean War veterans. And you are a great, great man, a great Marine, Mr. Dunn. You're a great Marine. And I know once a Marine, always a Marine. I've heard that from a lot of our Marine veterans. Now, one other thing I like to do is show two more pictures that I didn't get a chance to show earlier. So let me go back here, and I want to share two more pictures of Mr. Dunn. Okay, let's see here. So this is you in Korea.
Oh, you're showing, okay.
Yes. So who is this next to you in this picture, Mr. Dunn? Do you remember?
Yes, I remember. That was 2 weeks before I was wounded.
Now, who is this Marine next to you? Do you remember who it was?
John Dory. He's from Texas, and he's the one. Dory's name came before me, and he got to be the martyr person.
Okay.
But he and I were good friends, and we were back in reserve, ready to go up to Hill 812.
I see. Did he survive the war? I hope.
Pardon?
Did he survive the war?
Oh yes, he didn't even get wounded.
Oh, that's good. Thank God.
Later, and he's doing okay.
Okay, and then this last picture I have of you.
That was in Japan.
That was in Japan. And who is this officer?
If you look close, I couldn't see there.
Yes, you have your eyes closed.
Yeah, I couldn't see it, but this captain came up to me, Navy captain, said, introduced himself. He said, "I'm here to present the Purple Heart to you."
Mm-hmm. So I see it. I see that he pinned it on you there.
A photographer with him.
I see.
And he took these pictures and sent them to my mother.
I see. So this is while you were still in Japan, just a few weeks after you were injured.
Yeah, I was in Yokosuka, Japan.
I see. Okay. Wow. Well, Mr. Dunn, I am truly humbled and so grateful. You know, when I was born in Korea, some 13 years after the armistice, I had no idea my life would lead to America. And here I am sitting in front of a Korean War hero that fought and saved my family. I never imagined I would meet so many American heroes in my life. And I have truly appreciated and just appreciated this conversation with you today, Mr. Dunn. I hope I'll have the opportunity to come see you in Texas.
Well, I'm just honored to be interviewed by you, and I hope someday we can meet.
Yes, I plan on going to Texas soon when Sherri Steward finishes that memorial. I know she's working on that memorial. Yes, and actually, I want to take a minute here to recognize my dear friend Sherri Steward, who introduced you to me. And if not for Sherri, I would not have known about you. And so I'm so grateful to Sherri for all she does with the Korean War veterans of the Walker Chapter 215 in Texas. She is an amazing patriot and a great lady. And you are all very lucky to have Sherri there with you. I know she loves you all very much and takes such great care of you. And I hope I will have the opportunity to see you, Mr. Dunn, soon.
Hey, well, good. I Hope to meet you sometime.
Well, I hope so too. Well, God bless you, Mr. Dunn, and your daughter, Julie, who helped you. I really appreciate her
Thank you.
help with this Zoom setup today. And this won't be the last time I talk to you, Mr. Dunn. I'll call you from here and there and see what you're doing. And if there's any time you want to just talk to me, please give me a call. I would love to hear from you.
Well, good. Well, I want to get on your Facebook.
Okay, well, please like my page. I sent you the link. And I started that Facebook page about now 6 years ago. And when I started it, I didn't even know how to do Facebook. But today, now I've got quite a lot of people watching Facebook. So I will upload this recorded video interview to my Facebook. And this will go to a wide audience, Mr. Dunn. It will go to a lot of people in Korea, United Kingdom, Australia, a lot of different countries. But of course, the greatest viewers are in United States. So a lot of people will be watching your interview today. So I cannot thank you enough, Mr. Dunn, for all you have done for the Korean people and for your fellow veterans. You are truly a great American hero.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. God bless you and your family.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, goodbye.